In today's episode, I'm joined by the one and only Lucy Blackburn, founder of Lips and Lines, celebrity, aesthetician, and total powerhouse. From rebuilding her life in rehab to running one of the most sought-after aesthetics clinics, Lucy's journey is nothing short of remarkable. We're talking about how she turned rock bottom into the launch pad for her business, her views on the ever-growing and sometimes controversial aesthetics industry, and what it really takes to build a brand in a world that's constantly changing. Lucy gets real about her sobriety, the drive that keeps her going, and how she went from being my neighbour to becoming one of the go-to names in the beauty game. So whether you're sipping tea or something a little stronger, get comfy because this episode is raw, inspiring, and full of gold. Now let's go spill the tea with Lucy Blackburn. Lucy, thank you so much for joining me today in the studio.
Thanks for having me. First pod ever.
I know. I actually feel so fucking honoured that you are joining me. This is your first podcast ever.
Wouldn't do it with anyone else.
Why is that? I'm genuinely intrigued. Obviously, I know you listen to my podcast.
Yeah. So listen to your podcast, and I just love like what you've achieved in a business sense anyway. And I think I will always admire just women in business from a young age. And yeah, I think we got to know each other a little bit. So,
well, well, you know this because you listen to the podcast, but every podcast starts, for those that might be new to this podcast, with us talking about how we actually know each other. So how do we know each other, Lucy?
So I was living in Manchester, and came back to Bournemouth to live. And you were my landlord? Letting agent. So, yeah. And also my next door neighbour.
Although I get so involved, it wouldn't be weird for you to actually think I was your landlord because you didn't actually have any engagement with your landlord. It was me, like your property PA.
So it was about 25. Was I about? No, a little bit older. Maybe about 27. So 5 years ago.
It was just after lockdown?
Yeah, so first lockdown I spent in Manchester. So yeah, in that kind of period.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And we were neighbours.
We was.
You're like the girl next door.
Yes.
Professional, yeah. I don't know, we built like a friendship, I think.
Yeah, no, of course. And I think over time as well, like I think, you know, I would always like your stuff on Instagram and things like that. And obviously a few dinners, which has been nice. And yeah.
So nice. I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, but my perception of that time in both of our lives, we were sort of going through like a darkish stage. But equally we were on that, like, we had that momentum where we were both